Hello everybody. The effects of climate change are undeniable. According to the World Economic Forum, 4 out of the 5 biggest risks the world are facing are linked to climate change, namely extreme weather, water disasters, natural disasters, and certainly the inability to mitigate climate risk. We will all appreciate that in the recent times, we have seen significant devastation coming through the climate. Just to name a few, due to fire, about 46 million acres of land and 3,500 homes were destroyed in Australia. Due to floods, with a 17.5 meters increase in the Nile River in Sudan, about 100,000 homes were destroyed. And recently in summer, again due to floods, about 6,000 people were left homeless in China, the Hubei province, due to again climate calamity. Clearly, climate calamities have been impacting not only our communities, but our livelihoods in general. Across the world, you will appreciate there is a significant momentum towards the climate agenda. Regulators, governments, stakeholders, corporates, societies, communities are all heading towards a climate zero economy. We all appreciate the impact of climate and the devastation it can cause is way too significant. 21% of the top 2,000 corporates in the world who are emitting climate emissions have also taken a strong stand towards a zero climate emission agenda. We will continue to see that investors, asset holders, regulators, politicians, policymakers are all going to continue to also give their commitments towards this agenda by 2050. Not only that, they will demand more from us. For us at Standard Chartered Bank, we believe that the climate agenda is not only to be left for the government, but it is something that we all have a role to play in our daily lives, in our corporate setting, in our economy, and overall to protect this world. At Standard Chartered Bank, we are significantly committed to this agenda. Firstly, we have put together a transition finance imperative to support our clients to get to a decarbonized organizational commitment. We personally as an organization have also committed to a net zero status by 2030 and actually recommend that a lot of our peers, leaders also commit to this agenda. It is absolutely vital. For Standard Chartered Bank, we have worked with our clients and identified opportunities to decarbonize our financing. What we have done is we have identified 8 critical industries where the carbon emissions are extreme and locations where the carbon emissions are extreme, and have worked with our clients to establish a framework of decarbonization for them. We will work with and certainly reward and award and recognize and respect good thought leaders and good organizations that contribute to this cause, and we will support them. From my side, as the CEO of Standard Chartered Bank, I am very privileged that that is the stand my organization has taken. I have witnessed and recognized, talking to many individuals, that decarbonization agenda can be a daunting task. However, I must tell you, it is not as difficult as it feels as you plan your transition. What is important is your ability, 1, to delegate, and 2, to have the right partnerships. For me, the CFOs must drive this agenda in the organization. For Standard Chartered Bank, we intend to reduce our finance carbon emissions working with our clients, having identified 8 key sectors where the carbon emissions are significant, and locations too. We will drive our capital flows to support companies and organizations that have a good decarbonization strategy. The task to manage climate change and the climate agenda can be daunting. For me, the CFOs need to be empowered. Whilst it is very true that the expectation on the CEO is to be the change maker and the pace setter on the climate agenda in the organization, as I have said previously, taking parallels from the COVID pandemic that we are facing, in the COVID crisis, the front line were the medical specialists to support the agenda. Similarly, on the climate crisis, the front line should be the CFOs. For me, at Standard Chartered Bank, I am significantly supported by a very able CFO who not only supports me to drive the business strategy, but also my sustainability strategy. The CFOs have significant capabilities to understand business models and the demands of the stakeholders, and thereby supporting them with reporting towards a decarbonized strategy for the organization. The CFOs can also introduce climate risk as part of a systemic risk for the organization. Introducing climate risk as a systemic risk in the organization allows the key stakeholders in the organization and externally to focus on the consequences of not being deliberate on climate risks. It also allows the organization to appreciate the opportunities that the climate agenda and having a decarbonization strategy can bring for the organization. Currently, climate risk has not been fully included in the valuations of the company. The opportunities, the risks, the potential capital commitments, the impact of the ecosystem have not been fully appreciated in the reporting. This will come into play in days to come, and the CFO can support this agenda very much. The essence of long-term value creation will require a lot of insights, and the CFO can help here. In this case, the CFO needs to understand the risks, the opportunities, the implications, the trade-offs, and the significant impact that climate can bring to our strategic organizational agenda. With the right insights on opportunities and the risks, organization can set up their strategy on decarbonizing and tell the stories to the investors. So one, the CFO needs to understand the overall emissions of the company. The CFO must work with the internal stakeholders, one, to scope the direct emissions, two, to scope the indirect emissions including electricity, and three, to scope the overall emissions of the company. They then need to translate this information into numbers and the cost that it takes. CFOs need to also understand the tax regulations and regulatory requirements so that they have a head start in decarbonization. Secondly, the CFO must bring climate risk as part of strategy. This is very critical to decision making in the organization. The CFO must assist with different scenario planning and risk analysis and trade-offs. It helps the organization, one, to have a much more focused attention to what it will require to decarbonize, but two, also to appreciate what are the trade-offs that are necessary, including investments that need to be made. Secondly, integrating climate strategy and risk assessment. Here, the CFO needs to do risk analysis and scenario analysis, which will enable the organization to appreciate these trade-offs that are necessary and the investments that need to be made towards decarbonization. It also allows the CFO to talk to the stakeholders around the implications on assets, liabilities, capitals, revenue, and expenditure. Third is about understanding the company's decarbonization options. Decarbonization requires stakeholder buy-in. It also requires understanding financing options, including costs and benefits. Capital investment towards decarbonization can require a lot of financing. Here, the CFO can play a very critical role, providing options and opportunities for financing, including green financing. Finally, it's about leading the company's net zero agenda. Board members, investors, clients, stakeholders will all need to have a lot of information about investments that need to be made, risks and opportunities, KPIs, trade-offs. All this will be required to be informed to the stakeholders. This will allow stakeholders to also support the organization. Finally, it's about leading the company's net zero agenda. Board members, clients, stakeholders, all will be needed to be informed about the journey, the risks and opportunities, the trade-offs, the investments, the KPIs and the targets of the organization, so that the stakeholders can also support the company in this journey.